Welcome back to another episode of NBA 2K18 roster edits with Remember the Great Sports. Today we're going to cover the Utah Jazz. This actually is a very, very good stock roster, and I was looking at the updates on NBA 2K19 and they actually added this player. So if you wind up buying NBA 2K19, you don't have to do anything with the all-time Jazz. It's ready to go right out of the package. So I'm just going to go through the starting lineups after I make the additions, but I'm just going to skip to the one person that I feel needs to be dropped off the team, and that one person is Al Jefferson. Jefferson, again, a good ball player, but he only spent 3 seasons with the Jazz. And the person that I'm going to share with you is actually a longer tenured Jazz player that pretty much plays the same position as Jefferson. So with that being said, stay with me. Al Jefferson's the deletion off this roster. It's going to be a really short video. Alright, so here we are. This is the starting lineup for the all-time Utah/New Orleans Jazz. Many people don't remember that the New Orleans Jazz were the Utah Jazz before they came to Utah. Thus, they kept the name the Jazz, because a lot of people don't understand, well, what the heck, Utah has Jazz? No, the name originated from New Orleans, which is where they have the Jazz, obviously. So, most obvious, your starting point guard, none other than John Stockton. I mean, there's no argument there. Probably one of the best top 5 point guards ever to play in the NBA. So Stockton is your guy. He can run the point, he can score, he can shoot a 3, but he's definitely good at dishing you the ball. Number 2, we got Pistol Pete himself. Pistol Pete at the shooting guard. You know, he's an overall 95. As you can see, he spent his formative years, with the Jazz. He also was an Atlanta Hawk previous to that, which he obviously is on the Atlanta Hawks all-time team as well. But he gets the nod at, Utah at the starting shooting guard. But he also, being the magical man that he is with his hands, he obviously can run the point if needed as well. One of the best passers, if not the best ball handler ever to play in the NBA, Pistol Pete. Starting small forward, often overlooked, Hall of Famer, Adrian Dantley. Adrian Dantley was a long-time Utah Jazz player. As you can see, for a period of 1, 2, 3, 4 years, he averaged over 30 points a game for the Jazz. Over 30 points a game for 4 seasons. Got into the Hall of Fame a few years ago. Often overlooked as one of the best small forwards ever to play the game. Probably because he played in so many small markets during his career that he wasn't, he never was on a championship, team. So Adrian Dantley at small forward. Power forward, Karl Malone. No question there. One could argue that the best power forward ever to play. Another argument can be made for Tim Duncan, as the greatest power forward ever to play. But there's no doubt that you have Karl Malone as your starting power forward on the all-time Jazz team. The starting center is the big man in the middle, 7'4", 275 pounds, Mark Eaton. Mark Eaton is a defensive rebounding specialist. He was not really an offensive guy. He didn't score really. He averaged about 6 points a game for his entire career. But he was the big man in the middle that Stockton and Malone relied on for that instant defense. So somebody like Mark Eaton could shut down one of the best centers in the league. And if you're facing a team with all-time great centers like Bill Russell, Wilt Chamberlain, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, this might be the guy that you want guarding him, because he's just so huge and so awesome at blocking shots. So Mark Eaton, kind of a one-dimensional player, but a very good fit on the all-time Jazz when you have these other 4 guys that are scorers. So there's your starting center. Your backup shooting guard is Deron Williams out of the University of Illinois. He played for Utah for, it looks like about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 5.5 seasons before he was traded to the Nets. He's also on the all-time Nets team as well. But very formidable backup point guard for John Stockton. Backup power forward / small forward. You can list him however you want, and that is AK-47 Andrei Kirilenko. If you wanted to shift him to small forward, you could, but on this team I leave him at the power. He is probably one of the best players ever to come out of Russia. Played for the Jazz, for many years. Very good player, very good defender. He can shoot a three-pointer as well. But he's the backup power forward, but he also can play the three as well if needed. But at the three, we have Gordon Hayward out of Butler, who many of you know he was their first-round pick, back in 2010. Very, very formidable years with the Utah Jazz before he left for free agency. But as you can see, he progressively got better, every season that he was with the Jazz until he finally left for free agency to the Celtics. So definitely after 7 or 8 years on the team, he definitely makes it as the backup small forward. Backup center is the current guy on the Jazz, and that is the Rudy Gobert from France. Has a little better offensive ability than Mark Eaton. He also, is nicknamed the Stifle Tower because of his size and his shot blocking abilities. But he is, if you wanted to replace Eaton in the starting lineup with him, you probably would be okay, is what I'm trying to get at. Gobert obviously would not get the touches with Stockton, Malone, Maravich, and Dantley. So Gobert is probably better suited as the backup center because then you have offense coming off your bench, at the center position, where you really don't with Eaton with the other 4 guys in the starting lineup. So Gobert, definitely the best backup center ever. This is a very often overlooked great shooting guard, and I'm very happy that NBA 2K decided to get him on the game, and that is Darrell Griffith. Griffith played for the University of Louisville, and as you can see his numbers, he averaged over 20 a game, it looks like 4 times in his career for the Jazz. Was a very good three-point shooter. One of the first good three-point shooters when the three-point line was introduced in the NBA. Also was a great dunker. A good slam dunk guy. He was a high flyer, at least in his earlier years with the Jazz and when he was at Louisville. So, Darrell Griffith, very good offensive threat coming off the bench at the backup shooting guard behind Pete Maravich. Another power forward / center, another big guy on the team, and I go back to Al Jefferson doesn't have a place because we have too many big guys, is Carlos Boozer. Carlos Boozer was a very hard-working NBA player out of Duke University. As you can see, he spent 6 years with the Jazz, and you could probably argue those were his best seasons. As he averaged, over 20 and 10, 2 of those seasons while with the Jazz. He's often not regarded as one of the greats of the game for whatever reason, I don't know. But I think if you match up his numbers to some of the other people that have played, that are in the Hall of Fame, you're going to be pretty surprised at his numbers, how they match up. And I just feel because he never played for a winning team, really, that's probably why he was often overlooked. But, a definitely formidable backup power forward center. Another guard to have on the team is Jeff Hornacek. Hornacek played for many teams. He played for the Sixers, the Suns. Very good player on the Suns, but he also was a very formidable player on the Utah Jazz. Lights out three-point shooter. He is one of those guys that you cannot leave open because he will drain them down from wherever. He was a very good shooter for a long time. He's taken up coaching lately. I'm not sure who he's coaching nowadays. He's kind of bounced around a little bit with his coaching career, but definitely a good backup shooting guard. I guess that'd be backup shooting guard on the team. And this is the guy that I added. This is Thurl Bailey. And Thurl normally wears goggles, but the creation option on this game does not allow you to have a guy with goggles. So if I had an opportunity to add goggles to this guy, I would. But Thurl Bailey was actually included on the new NBA 2K19 game, So you would not have to create him for this team. So, very good player, backup power forward, small forward. He was a 6'11" small forward basically out of North Carolina State, and he played very formidable years with the Jazz. He was there with Stockton, Malone, Eaton, those guys, and had a very long career with the Jazz. That leaves out the reserves, and these guys are already on the stock roster. I just bumped them below, Thurl Bailey on the depth chart, but it's another power forward in Paul Millsap, who spent, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 seasons with the Jazz before he went to Atlanta and now with Denver. Then you have Derrick Favors, who also has had some very formidable years also with the Jazz. But you can't have all power forwards on this team. It's kind of like the situation with the Heat when you have Alonzo Mourning and Shaq. What use do you have for 3 more centers on the team? That's kind of the situation with the power forwards on this team. When you have Karl Malone, you're not going to play much at power forward. So, finally, the coach is Jerry Sloan. Not a real good pick right there. But that's the best. That's really, my options were limited for Jerry Sloan in his picture. I mean, Jerry Sloan had gray hair, by the time he was finished playing. So this was, the best I could come up with. I don't like the picture, but it is what it is. My options were limited, with face options for coaches. So Jerry Sloan, all-time winningest coach in Jazz history. He's up there on the all-time winningest coach list, ever in the NBA. So, no doubt that he would be the coach of the Utah Jazz. So, finally, this video is a little bit shorter. Hope you enjoyed it. Utah Jazz were a very good team and a very good franchise. And the nice thing is this is probably, if not the only roster on the NBA 2K18 and 19 that you have to do very minimal work on. So, thanks for watching, and join me again for the next episode. Thanks.